My name is Dani Matthews, and I'm 17 years old from Hackensack, New Jersey. What I'm about to tell you isn't just a story, it's the cruelest joke my parents ever played on me. One moment, I was in the back seat of our minivan, giggling over TikToks on our family trip to Manhattan. The next, alone on a grimy train platform with my phone dead, no wallet, and no clue how to get home. They abandoned me, yes, abandoned, as a fun family prank. But I turned that pain into a plan. And trust me, I made them regret every second of it. Have you ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you the most? Comment below, because you are not alone. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The story only gets crazier from here, your family, the Matthews. On paper, we were the picture of suburban bliss. My mom, Rachel, was a social worker, always empathetic and seemingly so understanding. My dad, Greg, an ex-Marine who transitioned into being a motivational speaker. He was all about discipline, pushing boundaries, and building resilience. And then there was Finn, my little brother, 12 years old, full of mischief and always looking for an adventure. From the outside, we looked like the kind of family you'd see in a magazine. Our Facebook photos were curated to perfection. Smiling faces at community events, vacation selfies with breathtaking backdrops, even candid shots of us laughing around the dinner table. If you scrolled through Dad's LinkedIn, you'd see testimonials praising his tough love approach to life and leadership. Mom's social media was filled with inspirational quotes about compassion and making a difference. We even had a family motto, coined by Dad, Matthews Grit Gets It Done. But peel back that perfectly polished surface and you'd find something a little sharper, especially with Dad. He truly believed in his toughening people up philosophy, and it wasn't just for his corporate clients. It extended to home. Small mistakes would be met with lectures about mental fortitude. Tears were often seen as a sign of weakness, something to be overcome, not comforted. Mom, while softer in her approach, rarely challenged him directly. She'd offer a sympathetic look, maybe a gentle squeeze of the arm, but ultimately, Dad's word was law. It was this undercurrent of needing to prove ourselves, to always be tough and resilient, that defined our home life more than any family photo ever could. Finn, being younger, mostly escaped the full force of Dad's training. He was still the mischievous little brother, finding amusement in pranks and running wild. I, however, being 17 and on the cusp of adulthood, was a prime target for Dad's lessons. He often said I was too sensitive and that the world wouldn't coddle me. I always brushed it off, thinking it was just his way of preparing me for life. I never imagined how literally he'd take that preparation. We projected this image of strength and unity, a family that conquered challenges together. We seemed unshakable. Little did I know that carefully constructed facade was about to shatter, exposing the cruel streak that lay beneath it all. And it would start with what they thought was just another lesson. The plan for Saturday was quintessential family fun. A trip into the city, Manhattan. The energy in the minivan was electric. Music blared from the speakers, some popular TikTok track Finn had put on, which even Mom was humming along to. We talked about hitting Times Square, maybe finding one of those street performers Dad loved to watch, and definitely, absolutely, getting dollar pizza. It felt normal, like any other exciting family outing. We were all hyped up, laughing, sharing jokes. It was the kind of moment that, looking back, feels like a cruel trick of the light illuminating how utterly unprepared I was for what came next. As we were driving, somewhere deep in New Jersey, they suddenly pulled off the highway. It wasn't a rest stop, but a quiet, nondescript street leading to a rather grimy-looking New Jersey transit station. Just a quick stop, Dani. Stretch your legs, Dad announced, already unbuckling his seatbelt. Mom chimed in, Yeah, honey, we noticed we're low on bottled water. There's a vending machine inside. Go grab a couple for us, will you? Your phone's charging in the console anyway, so you won't miss anything. It struck me as a little odd since we usually stocked up, but I didn't think much of it. My phone was charging, and I was happy to stretch my legs. I hopped out, leaving my phone plugged into the car's console, and walked towards the entrance of the station, looking for the vending machines. The air felt colder than usual, and a strange quiet had fallen. I was halfway through the glass doors when I heard the distinct sound of our minivan's engine revving. I turned, a puzzled frown on my face, expecting to see them just repositioning the car. But they weren't. Our minivan, with its familiar dent on the back bumper and the faded Hackensack High sticker, was pulling away. Fast. My mind struggled to catch up. Why were they leaving without me? I saw Finn's face, pressed against the back window, a wide, almost manic grin spreading across it. And then I heard the unmistakable sound of their laughter, loud and echoing, even from the accelerating vehicle. It wasn't gentle, playful laughter. It was almost hysterical. My breath hitched. They were truly, actually leaving. Without me. I stood there, frozen, watching as the minivan shrank into the distance, eventually disappearing entirely around a bend. The laughter, however, still seemed to hang in the air, a phantom sound mocking me. Panic, cold and sharp, began to prickle at my skin. No phone. No money. No idea where I was beyond some New Jersey train station. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a quick errand. This wasn't stretching our legs. This was it. They had just driven off and left me. And they had done it laughing. Gee, the quiet of the station became deafening. The grimy platform suddenly felt enormous, swallowing me whole. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. I was utterly, completely, terrifyingly alone. The initial icy grip of despair gave way to a surge of adrenaline. My survival instincts kicked in hard. I couldn't just stand there and cry. I had to do something. My first thought was to find someone, anyone, who could help. The station was larger than it initially appeared, a labyrinth of dim corridors and flickering fluorescent lights. It was Newark Penn Station, I soon realized, a far cry from the bustling, tourist-friendly New York City I'd been expecting. I approached a ticket counter, heart pounding. A stern-faced man behind the glass barely looked up from his computer. "Excuse me," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "My parents. They accidentally left me here. My phone is in their car, and I don't have any money. Can you help me call them?" He just sighed, a deep, exasperated sound. "Kid, this isn't a lost and found. We can't just let anyone use our phones. You got no ID, no ticket, no money? Not my problem. Go on, clear out." Dismissed, just like that. I tried another uniformed staff member, then another. Each time, I was met with indifference, suspicion, or outright exasperation. The sheer hopelessness of it all started to weigh on me again. I wandered, feeling increasingly vulnerable, through dimly lit hallways that smelled vaguely of stale popcorn and something metallic. The sounds of distant trains rumbling vibrated through the floor, a constant reminder of how far I was from home. I saw shadows darting in the periphery, heard hushed conversations, and felt eyes on me. This was not the safe, familiar world of Hackensack. Just as panic began to truly set in a cleaner, quieter corner near a row of vending machines that actually seemed to be working, I saw her. A woman, probably in her early 60s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense bun, was methodically emptying trash cans. She was wearing a janitor's uniform, and as she moved, she hummed softly to herself. I hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Excuse me?" I asked tentatively. She turned, her humming ceasing, and gave me a direct but not unkind look. "Lost, sweetie?" she asked, her voice surprisingly warm. Tears welled up again, but this time they weren't entirely from fear. My parents. They left me here. It was a prank. But my phone's dead, and I don't have any money. She listened, her expression unreadable at first, then softened. "A prank, huh?" "Some joke." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, crinkled bag of pretzels. "Here, you look like you could use these." Then, without another word, she pulled out an old flip phone. "Who you trying to call?" Her name was Tamika. She let me use her phone, patiently waiting as I racked my brain for numbers I only knew by heart. My aunt, my grandparents, my cousin, Elena. Finally, I remembered Elena's number. My cousin Elena, who was living in Brooklyn, studying journalism. Tamika waited as I dialed, holding the old phone steady for me. Elena answered, her voice sleepy and confused at first, then sharp with concern as I blurted out my story, my voice cracking with relief. Within an hour, Elena, bless her heart, was on a train to Newark. Tamika stayed with me, sharing stories about her own life, keeping my spirits up, and even buying me a small, lukewarm coffee from a machine. She was an unexpected anchor in a sea of terror. Elena arrived, her face a mixture of fury and relief, whisking me away from the station and its lingering dread. The ordeal was far from over, though. As we rode the subway back to Brooklyn, Elena, still fuming, scrolled through her phone. That's when she found a video posted by my parents titled, "We left our teen alone at a dead train station," and she actually survived. The thumbnail was a blurred picture of me walking away from the car with an arrow pointing to my back and a dramatic red circle. It had already gone viral. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments, a mix of outrage and misguided amusement. My parents had turned my terror into content, and in that moment, the humiliation began to burn even hotter than the fear when I finally returned home from Elena's apartment. Driven by a very concerned family friend Elena had called, the air felt thick with unsaid things. My parents acted as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. They were overly cheerful, asking about my adventure with a lightness that felt profoundly wrong. Relief on their part mingled with a strange pride, as if they'd just put me through a challenging exam I had passed. I was back in my bedroom, in my own bed, but I felt more adrift than I had on that cold train platform. The panic of being abandoned had subsided, replaced by a deep, gnawing trauma. Every time I heard a car door close, my body tensed. Every laugh seemed to carry a mocking echo. School the next week was a nightmare. The viral video, with my blurry image and parents' triumphant title, had made its rounds. Kids I barely knew pointed and whispered. Some brave, or perhaps thoughtless, few asked me directly, "Is it true your parents really left you at a train station?" The mockery was subtle but pervasive. It seeped into my days, making every hallway encounter feel like an interrogation. I felt exposed, humiliated, and utterly alone, even when surrounded by hundreds of my peers. Teachers noticed. My homeroom teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, pulled me aside, her brow furrowed with concern. The school counselor called my parents. Their response, as relayed by the principal, was infuriatingly dismissive. Oh, that? It was harmless. My dad had reportedly shrugged over the phone. Just a little lesson in street smarts. She's fine. Tougher now, even. My mom echoed his sentiments, adding a placid, "It was just a prank, really. We were watching her the whole time." Lies, L of it. They weren't watching me. They hadn't been watching me. They had driven off, laughing. Their gaslighting made me question my own reality for a fleeting moment, but the vivid, visceral memory of my fear was undeniable. They dismissed my trauma with a wave of their hand, rendering my feelings invalid, turning my experience into a punchline. One night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, the dam broke. All the shame, the fear, the anger, the humiliation, it simply overwhelmed me. I crumbled, sobbing until my throat ached and my eyes burned. But amidst the tears, something new simmered. Not just pain, but a fierce, hot rage. A desire to be seen, to be heard, to reclaim my story. I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling. I opened TikTok, not to scroll, but to create. I didn't plan it. The words just spilled out, raw and unfiltered. I detailed everything, the perfect family facade, the joke at the train station, the dismissive staff, Tamika's kindness, Elena's rescue, the viral video, the school's whispers, my parents' gaslighting. I didn't use any fancy editing. It was just me, tears in my eyes, voice sometimes cracking, telling my truth. I kept it private at first, debating whether to even share it. But the anger fueled me. I hit post just for a small circle of friends, thinking it would either disappear into the internet void or be met with more dismissal. It didn't. Within hours, my DMs were flooded. Comments poured in, not from my personal circle, but from strangers. "I'm so sorry. Dani, your parents are monsters. This isn't okay. The post gained traction, then went viral, not in a humorous way, but in a wave of collective outrage. Thousands, then tens of thousands, rallied behind me. The public, who had initially seen my parents' clickbait video, started to turn. They saw my side now. They saw the cruelty. And for the first time since that terrible day, I felt a flicker of something new. Not just rage, but power. A private TikTok video was my initial scream into the void, a desperate cry for validation. The unexpected response, the wave of support, was like a powerful shot of adrenaline directly into my veins. It lifted me from the depths of shame and gave me a sense of purpose. But it also crystallized something else. This couldn't be a one-off emotional outburst. My parents' public humiliation of me demanded a different kind of retribution, a deliberate, strategic one. That's where Elena came in. My cousin wasn't just a kind rescuer. She was a sharp, focused journalism student with an uncanny ability to connect dots and see angles. When I poured out my heart to her about the internet's reaction and my parents' continued denial, her eyes lit up with a familiar journalistic fire. "Dani," she said, "this isn't just about getting even. This is about exposing a pattern, about protecting other kids who might be on the receiving end of this kind of tough love for social media clout." Together, we started to craft a PLN, Operation Cold Shoulder. The goal was twofold: distance and exposure. I would create an emotional chasm between myself and my parents, a silent protest that would chip away at their carefully constructed perfect family image. And simultaneously, I would meticulously document their insidious behaviors, compiling a dossier of their obsession with viral stunts and their gaslighting tendencies. The first part of the plan was simple, yet incredibly difficult. When I was home, I would be polite, cooperative, even seemingly fine. But I would be emotionally detached. At dinner, my answers would be monosyllabic. "How was school, Dani?" "Fine." "What did you do today?" "Nothing much." I'd avoid eye contact, retreating into my own world, a book, or my headphones, whenever possible. The shift was subtle at first. My mom would try to cajole me. My dad would accuse me of being moody. But I remained impassive, a wall they couldn't breach. I started to record. Nothing obvious, nothing that would tip them off. My phone was almost always with me. I'd subtly filmed snippets of their conversations, their attempts to frame the train station incident as a hilarious anecdote, their dismissive reactions to any mention of my feelings. I caught Dad lecturing Finn about being soft after he tripped and scraped his knee. Mom's saccharine sweet voice telling a relative on the phone that Dani just has a flair for the dramatic. These were the small, almost imperceptible threads that wove the fabric of their harmless parenting. The cold shoulder began to work. Dinner conversations became strained. The laughter that once filled the car was replaced by an uncomfortable silence, broken only by the chirping of crickets or the distant hum of traffic. My parents, accustomed to my open nature, to my animated storytelling, grew increasingly agitated by my quiet rebellion. My mom started hovering, asking if I was feeling okay, if I needed anything. My dad, ever the one to fix things, tried harsher tactics, grounding me for invented transgressions. But I met every punishment, every attempt to draw me out, with the same unyielding, calm detachment. They were used to my emotions being loud, messy, and dramatic. They knew how to handle my outbursts, my crying fits. But this quiet, steady withdrawal, this was new. It was maddening for them. I could see it in their eyes, the frustration mounting day by day. They didn't know how to reach me because I wasn't reacting in the way they expected, the way they craved for their narrative. I was becoming an unreadable book, and it was driving them absolutely mad. Every silent meal, every averted gaze, every "I'm fine" was a tiny victory, a chip off their perfect facade. They wanted a reaction. I gave them nothing. And that, I realized, was the most effective revenge of all. The emotional distance I created at home was an important step, but it was only the quiet prelude. The public outrage that my private TikTok sparked gave me courage and the platform to make my story undeniably visible. With Elena's guidance, we meticulously compiled everything. The screenshots of my parents' viral video, the comments, the direct messages of support from strangers, the dismissive texts from them when I finally got my phone back. And crucially, the short, hidden video clips I had been secretly recording. My dad coaching my mom on how to phrase their harmless prank story, their laughter echoing from the minivan as they drove away, fleeting moments that captured their twisted logic and lack of remorse. It took weeks of careful planning, editing, and structuring. Elena, with her journalistic eye, helped me shape the narrative. We didn't want it to be a tantrum. We wanted it to be a clear, factual account, presented with the same kind of evidence-based storytelling that genuine news relies on. The title we chose was stark, uncompromising. They left me on a train platform as a joke. This is my story. I didn't want to hide behind anonymity or a vague description. I wanted them and the world to know exactly what had happened. The final video was 12 minutes long. Every second was impactful. It opened with a calm, deliberate recounting of the trip, the stop at the station, and my abandonment. Then came the chilling reveal of their viral video, juxtaposed with the reality of my terror. I included screenshots of their comments to people online, doubling down on the "it was just a joke" narrative. And then the hidden camera footage. Short, grainy clips, but undeniably powerful. My dad, with a smug look, saying to my mom, "Make sure you emphasize her resilience" in the comments, or a quick shot through the side view mirror of the minivan accelerating away, their distorted laughter faintly audible. These were the moments that exposed the calculated cruelty behind their performance. I uploaded it on a Tuesday night. I went to bed feeling a mixture of terror and liberation. I woke up to chaos. My phone was vibrating nonstop. Notifications were exploding. The video wasn't just going viral. It was detonating across the internet. News outlets were picking it up. Local TV stations were calling Elena's phone, trying to get in touch with me. National news desks were sending emails. The school principal called my mother, not with concern this time, but with serious questions about student welfare and liability. The impact was immediate and devastating for my parents' carefully curated lives. The speaking gigs my dad had lined up, the motivational seminars he was supposed to lead, they were canceled, one after another. Clients pulled out. His public image, his entire professional persona built on being a tough love guru, crumbled almost overnight. Sponsors for his online content, seeing the backlash, quickly severed ties. My mom, whose social work reputation was built on empathy, faced an internal review at her organization. In the midst of this storm, something incredible started happening for me. The same day the video exploded, an organization that advocates for teen mental health reached out. They'd seen my video, been deeply moved, and wanted to invite me to speak at an upcoming forum. Me, the girl who was abandoned as a joke, transformed into a voice for others. It wasn't the revenge I had actively sought, but it was a powerful validation. And it was only the beginning. My story, amplified by the internet, was no longer just about me and my parents. It was becoming a conversation, a rallying cry, for young people everywhere. The explosion of my video online was a whirlwind, but it wasn't just about the numbers or the news coverage. It was about validation. It gave me a voice I didn't know I had. When the producers of Teen Truths, a popular podcast focusing on youth challenges, reached out for an interview, I knew it was my chance to tell my story on a bigger platform, not just for rage, but for redemption. Elena came with me to the studio. She'd coached me, not on what to say, but on how to say it. The goal was never to bash my parents in a childish way. It was to speak my truth, candidly and honestly, about the hurt and the long-term impact of their actions. I wasn't there to fuel a gossip fire, but to highlight a serious issue: parents using their children for content, blurring the lines between discipline and emotional abuse, all for clicks and views. Sitting in front of the microphone, with the host, Sarah, looking at me with genuine empathy, I felt a calm I hadn't anticipated. I recounted the whole story, from the seemingly perfect family facade to the terror on the train platform, the dismissal from staff, Tamika's unexpected kindness, Elena's rescue, and the humiliation of seeing their viral video. I talked about the gaslighting at home, the struggles at school, and the initial rage that led me to make my own video. I didn't yell or cry. I simply stated the facts. It wasn't about toughening me up, I explained, my voice steady. It was about turning my fear into entertainment. It was about their desire for virality overriding their responsibility as parents. And that's a dangerous precedent. I spoke about the emotional toll it took, the trust that was shattered, and how difficult it was to process that the people who were supposed to protect me were the ones who inflicted such pain. When Sarah asked what I hoped would come from sharing my story, I paused. I hope other kids who feel unheard, who feel used or humiliated by their own families for content or for some misguided notion of tough love, see that they're not alone, and that they have a voice, that their feelings are valid. My parents thought they taught me a lesson that day. They did, but not the one they intended. They taught me that I could survive anything and that my voice matters. The interview resonated. The comments section of the podcast episode was flooded with messages from teens and even adults sharing similar experiences of being manipulated or exploited by their families. My story became a touchstone, a voice for those who had been silenced. My redemption arc was no longer just personal. It was becoming a public platform for healing and advocacy. Meanwhile, back in my parents' world, my dad was scrambling. The fallout from my video, compounded by my interview, was catastrophic for his career. His motivational speaking engagements dried up completely, and his online courses, once popular, were being met with scathing reviews and calls for boycotts. In a desperate attempt at damage control, he released an apology video. It was awful. Stilted, insincere, and clearly crafted by a PR team. He sat in front of a neutral background, carefully reading from a teleprompter, using corporate jargon about learning experiences and unintended consequences. He never once mentioned my name, never truly apologized for his actions, only for any distress caused. The internet, ever vigilant, immediately ridiculed it. Memes popped up comparing him to a hostage reading a ransom note. Sponsors who had been on the fence quickly pulled out, making it clear they wanted no association with the train station dad. My parents were losing control of their narrative, and the audience was no longer buying what they were selling. It wasn't about revenge anymore, not truly. It was about truth, and the truth, unlike a carefully curated online persona, had a way of cutting through the noise. Itchy public scorn for my father's apology video signaled a turning point. He had tried to spin the narrative to control the damage, but the internet wasn't buying it. His curated image of the tough, no-nonsense motivational speaker was shattered, replaced by the meme of the train station dad, a symbol of insincerity and performative parenting. While my father doubled down on pride, blaming cancel culture and woke mobs for his professional woes, my mother, Rachel, began to crack. The calls from her social work organization, the subtle glances from neighbors who had once lauded our perfect family, the constant hum of her husband's anger and frustration, it was clearly getting to her. She had always been the softer one, but she had consistently enabled my father's ideas, quietly going along with his schemes. Now the consequences were too big to ignore, too painful to gaslight away. One evening, I was with Elena at her apartment in Brooklyn. We were working on some ideas for future podcast content, planning out how to expand the advocacy around teens and family dynamics. There was a knock on the door, tentative at first, then a bit more insistent. Elena opened it, and there, on her doorstep, was my mother. Her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen, her hair disheveled, and she looked utterly defeated. She didn't have her usual composed demeanor. She looked fragile, broken. She burst into tears the moment she saw me, rushing forward as if to hug me. I instinctively stepped back, putting some distance between us. Elena, ever the protector, also put a gentle hand on my arm, signaling caution. My mother sunk to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. "Dani, please," she choked out. "I'm so sorry. I messed up. We messed up." Her apology wasn't the scripted, curated nonsense my father had put out. This was raw, messy, and desperate. She spoke about the pressure to maintain their online image, about how Greg had convinced her it was just a teaching moment, about her own fear of confronting him. She confessed to feeling trapped, realizing too late the depth of harm they had caused. She begged for forgiveness, for a chance to make things right, for me to come home. I let her talk, listening to every word. The anger, which had been a burning flame inside me for so long, felt strangely distant. It was replaced by a hollow ache, a profound sadness. When she finally quieted, looking up at me with tear-filled eyes, desperate for some sign of absolution, I finally spoke. My voice was calm, almost detached, a stark contrast to her emotional outburst. "Mom," I said, "I loved you enough to believe in your jokes. I always trusted you, always thought you had my best interests at heart. And you took that trust and you weaponized it. You used it for laughs, for views, for Dad's tough love narrative." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. The simple truth of my words hit her harder than any anger ever could. She winced, fresh tears springing to her eyes. My father, on the other hand, remained stubbornly prideful. He called me repeatedly, not to apologize, but to accuse me of ruining his life, of being ungrateful and dramatic. He sent venomous texts, blaming me for his lost contracts and his public humiliation, completely unwilling to acknowledge his own culpability. He was an embodiment of denial, convinced he was the victim of cancel culture rather than the architect of his own downfall. I knew then that there would be no true reconciliation with him, not as long as his ego held him captive. My mother's tears were real, but they were also a reaction to her own consequences, not solely born from selfless remorse. I had to choose peace for myself, not permission from them. I didn't owe them anything. In a final public statement posted on my growing social media platforms, I declared that I was choosing to heal, to focus on my own well-being and advocacy. I wasn't asking for their permission anymore. I was simply moving forward. After that intense conversation with my mother and my father's continued refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing, it became profoundly clear. I couldn't go back to that house. Not in the same way. The emotional toll was too high, the trust too broken. Elena, my steadfast cousin, immediately offered her spare bedroom. Her apartment, filled with her journalism books and a comforting scent of herbs from her cooking, became my sanctuary. It was small, but it was mine, and it was safe. The process of emancipation followed, quickly. With Elena's help and the very public nature of my story, it wasn't as difficult as it might have been otherwise. The school administration, now fully aware of the situation and the public scrutiny, also assisted. It was a formal declaration, a legal severing of ties, a monumental step for a 17-year-old. But it felt right. It felt like freedom. I was now truly a new Dani, a Dani living by new rules, rules I set for myself. Living with Elena, I was able to fully focus on finishing my senior year, something that had seemed impossible just a few months prior. Her apartment was always buzzing with her friends, other creative, driven students who treated me like an equal, not just the girl from the video. I was still speaking at events, still giving interviews, but it was different now. It wasn't about the raw hurt, but about building something positive. And that's how Not Your Punchline was born. It started as an idea, a continuation of the conversations I was having during my talks and on social media. A platform, a podcast, dedicated to amplifying the voices of young people who felt used, dismissed, or betrayed by the adults in their lives. It wasn't about revenge, but about advocacy, about creating a space where youth could share their stories, find solidarity, and realize their worth beyond being someone else's content. Elena helped me with the technical side, and soon we had episodes rolling, featuring other teens who had found their own versions of resilience. One afternoon, standing outside my old high school, waiting for a friend, I saw a familiar figure by the bus stop. Finn, my little brother. He looked younger, smaller than I remembered, his usually mischievous eyes subdued. He approached me hesitantly, shuffling his feet. "Dani," he mumbled, looking at the ground. I'm really sorry." His voice was barely a whisper. "About everything. I didn't know it would go that far." I never thought they'd actually leave you." He kicked at a pebble. "They don't laugh anymore. It's just quiet or yelling." My heart ached for him. He was just a kid, caught in the middle. I knelt down, pulling him into a tight hug. He stiffened at first, then melted, burying his face in my shoulder. "It's okay, Finn," I whispered. "It's not your fault. We talked for a long time that day, really talked." He told me about the constant tension at home, the arguments between Mom and Dad. It was clear that the perfect family was well and truly fractured. And they were. My parents, Rachel and Greg Matthews, were divorcing. The relentless public pressure, the financial ruin for my dad, the ethical review at my mom's job, and the undeniable truth of what they had done had finally shattered their marriage. Their home, once a symbol of curated perfection, was now just a broken shell. It was a stark, almost poetic end to their story. While they were tearing each other apart, I was building a new life, a new purpose. Their breakdown paradoxically became my breakthrough. I was free. Free to define my own home, my own rules, and my own future. I'm 18 now. My senior year of high school finished strong under Elena's roof, a haven filled with support and a quiet sense of purpose. College applications are done, and I'm packing for a new chapter, one I'm genuinely excited for. This past year has been a blur of interviews, advocacy work, and navigating a life completely transformed. My parents thought they broke me. They thought that train station joke would teach me some warped lesson about toughness. And in a way, it did. It taught me just how resilient I truly am, how much inner strength I possess, and how capable I am of building something beautiful out of broken pieces. They left me at a train station thinking I'd get lost. But I found myself. Not your punchline. The podcast I started has grown into something I never imagined. We have a dedicated following, and every single day, I receive messages from teens all over the world. They tell me their stories of manipulation, emotional neglect, or simply feeling invisible in their own homes. They tell me how my story resonated with them, how it gave them courage, how seeing me stand up for myself made them feel less alone. That, more than anything, is my victory. My pain has been transmuted into connection, into a voice for the voiceless. My brother, Finn, and I are closer than ever. He visits me and Elena often, and we talk freely, something we never really did before. He's starting to find his own voice, too, questioning things more, challenging authority in ways I only dreamt of. He sees the wreckage of our parents' marriage, their separate, bitter lives, and he's learning from their mistakes without having to relive them firsthand. Mom and Dad are divorced. Their public scandal, the financial hits, and the fundamental differences that defined their marriage proved insurmountable. I hear snippets of their lives through Finn, or occasionally through a worried relative who still tries to bridge the gap. My mom still tries to reach out sometimes with tentative texts or emails that often go unanswered. I've found that true healing isn't about dramatic confrontations, but about quiet boundaries. I'm cordial, but I maintain my distance. Forgiveness, for me, doesn't mean forgetting or resuming a relationship that was built on a foundation of pain. It means choosing my own peace. As for my dad, his online presence is a ghost town, his motivational career a cautionary tale. He hasn't tried to contact me directly in months, his pride still an unyielding wall. The girl who cried on a grimy train platform feels a world away. She was scared, vulnerable, and betrayed. But that experience forged the woman I am today. I learned that true strength isn't about being unfeeling or tough in the way my dad defined it. It's about honesty, vulnerability, self-advocacy, and the courage to reclaim your narrative. It's about recognizing that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you fail, and it's up to you to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and build something extraordinary from the rubble. This isn't just my story. It's a testament to what happens when you turn betrayal into purpose. It's a journey from brokenness to building, from being a joke to becoming a voice. And I wouldn't change a single painful step of it. If you've ever felt betrayed or had your trust broken, know that you are not alone. And know that your story has power, like if you believe in standing up for yourself. Subscribe for more real life stories with vengeance, redemption, and a little bit of drama.